Hi, this video is for Competency 8. This is the final competency that you will be graded on for your informative speech, and this is looking at nonverbal support for your speech. So far we've gone through the organizational, the actual write-up of the speech, and then the vocal parts of the speech, and this is the nonverbal part. So the first thing that you will be graded on in this competency is eye contact with your audience. So the 5 adults that you invite to watch your speech, you need to make sure that you are making eye contact with each of those people, as well as looking at the camera periodically as well. You want to be careful not to just blatantly stare creepily at people, that people get really uncomfortable when you do that. So when you are doing this in front of an audience, you'll want to make sure that you move your eyes around the room and that you make sure that you look at everyone who is there. The second part that you'll be graded on for nonverbal is your note involvement. So it is required that you use notes for this type of speaking. This is what we call extemporaneous speaking. So it's not impromptu, you're not just winging it, and it's not memorized, which means that you don't need any notes. It's sort of in the middle. So you have practiced the speech numerous times, so you feel very comfortable. You know basically what you're going to say, but it still has that conversational tone because it's not completely memorized. But you also are not on the end of impromptu where you're just like, oh shoot, I have to give a speech, I guess I'll just wing it. I don't want that type of speaking either. So in order to do extemporaneous speaking well, you should have notes that you are using. I suggest that you write out completely your introduction, conclusion, and any direct quotes that you have in your speech. Those are the toughest parts oftentimes, and that's the first thing that you hear and the last thing that you hear with the introduction and conclusion. It's usually what students spend the most time on, so you want to make sure that those are perfect. Everything else, you should just have a few words to help remind you where you are in the speech and what you were hoping to say during that point in the speech. So the thing with writing out every single word of your speech on your note cards is that oftentimes you end up reading your note cards, which screws up your expression, your rate of speed, as well as your eye contact. So you can write out the note cards word for word. I'm not checking them, just as a warning that oftentimes students end up reading their note cards when they write them out word for word. The next thing listed on your sheet is lectern use. So if we were in the classroom, you would be speaking from a podium, from a lectern. Since you're speaking probably from your home or your dorm room or wherever you may be, the likelihood that you will have a lectern is slim. So this isn't really for this speech that you're doing, but it does bring me to the point of what you should be doing with your note cards. I don't really want you holding your note cards because it makes gestures very difficult, because people end up holding them like this and they might drop them because they're nervous. So if there's a table or something that you can place your note cards on and then turn them one by one, that's usually the best way to do it. That way your note cards don't become a distraction during your speech. For appearance, it's not required that you dress up for this presentation, but it is formal, so if you would like to dress up, that would be great. I do ask that you do not wear hats and you do not wear sunglasses, because it makes it difficult for me to see your face and your eyes when you do that. Facial expressions. You need to make sure that you are using facial expressions during your speech and that they are appropriate to what you are speaking about. When you are engaged, a lot of times your facial expressions help show that. So it goes along with kind of that vocal presentation with expressiveness and that type of thing. And finally, gestures. So you should be using gestures during your speech. You should not be sitting down like I am. You need to be standing up, and that will make it easier to use gestures. If you're a person who talks a lot with your hands, you might need to tone down your gestures. What I don't want to see is your hands glued at your side. So a lot of times people use gestures to help emphasize You can be pointed about how you use your gestures when you're talking about this or that, or to make some sort of emphasis on a point that you're making. Sometimes students who struggle with gestures will make themselves a little note on their note cards like, oh, I need to use this gesture here. So just be aware that that is part of what you'll be graded on for your nonverbal.